All right, I think we'll go ahead and get rock and rolling here. We'll bring this meeting to order. I think we got a lot on the agenda, like Lindsay said. One of the first things that we need to get take care of is approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Hopefully, I think everyone reviewed those. I think those were sent out the other day. If I can get a motion from someone from the design council to get those meetings approved. Anyone?
Yeah.
There's a second? Second. Any discussion to be had there on any of that? It's approved. Going into new business. Again, we have a pretty packed agenda here. First one is to review the RFQ for the O.J. Watson Park murals. What we will be looking at, design council, is to review the RFQ and provide any thoughts, recommendations on it. So get going on that.
Hello, good morning. Tim Kellums, principal planner, landscape architect for public works and utilities. Work mostly on park CIP projects. You'll have me for the next three presentations here. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started. So O.J. Watson Park murals. So introduction here. Some of this is a little bit boilerplate, but kind of the biggest thing here is talking about the cost, which we're having for $25,000. The plan is to kind of get this started and completed in 2026, middle of 2026, encouraging for emerging artists to apply. These are murals, and we have quite a lot of talented muralists in the city. Also at O.J. Watson Park, most of you, hopefully many of you have been there. It's one of the oldest and largest parks in the park system. And has a lot of different activities and amenities, which makes this a pretty unique opportunity to help with some wayfinding, help with some sense of place, trying to build a little bit more of a narrative at O.J. Watson Park, given the so many different amenities that we have there and the variety of people that we have coming into the city and into the park from various places. Again, a little bit of background. It used to be a sand pit, used to be a mine site, sand pit lake. There's actually quite a bit of fishing that goes on there. As many of you probably know, there's pony rides, sand volleyball out there. It is bananas. We went out there a couple years ago, did a parking count. There's over 100 cars out there on an evening for sand volleyball. So there's lots of people out there, lots of visitors. If you haven't been to the park, you can get turned around a little bit. It's kind of a horseshoe shape, so it's not a circle. So it can get a little confusing when you get in there. You're kind of met with two different paths to go as soon as you kind of come into the park. So we think that some murals may be good again with that wayfinding. So for the art location, there are 4 public restrooms on site. They are, I'm going to show you some photos here. They are kind of a beige white color right now. Can't say that they're very inviting and exciting. So we think that would be a great blank canvas for these murals, again, to help with wayfinding and provide a little bit of kind of spruce things up. So for the mural locations, these are the general areas. These are where the restrooms are. You do, as I kind of mentioned earlier, it is kind of a horseshoe shape. You can see over there that there's no access all the way around. There's the train that runs through, but again, you kind of get hit dead ends. So trying to help people navigate through, we feel is important. It does take quite a bit of time. If you are down here, this is the main entrance. To get all the way back here, does take a little bit of time. It can be a little confusing because you kind of come in facing east, then end up facing northwest. So you kind of get turned around a little bit. Again, kind of what I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of different amenities, a lot of different activities that are done at O.J. Watson Park. Some of the biggest things that we're wanting, or kind of the theme for the murals, would be for activities and amenities that the park is known for in the natural environment. landscape qualities that are out there. We actually did put in a new boat ramp in the north pond. I'll go back just so you can kind of see. So there are two different lakes out there. There's quite a bit of fishing. The Kansas Department of Wildlife, or excuse me, Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks, they do stock some of these lakes. It is a community fisheries program where they help stock. They do educational sessions out there. I guess kind of going back, we are not expecting any sound, any light components to it. Again, this is a mural, so we're not thinking anything too much beyond a mural for the project. So the first location here, this will be the biggest one. There are two sides for this one on the concessions building. Oh, it's kind of near the concessions building, but it's near the main parking lot. We felt that there's quite a bit of opportunity given the number of people that will be going to the concessions building. We do have a project that will be happening to renovate the landscape around the concessions building. That area is pretty much right in here. So we think that this would be a good location to kind of help tie into that project that we have going on. The next one is the ponytail, as I mentioned, a lot of sand volleyball. That's up here. We do have this north side. Again, as I mentioned, they're not really that inviting. There are some things that they're going to have to navigate through to do the mural, including some doors, and there are a couple of drinking fountains to navigate. But again, this is kind of the most prominent location and view for visitors. And again, that's kind of the general circulation path that people are going to see. This train right here. So that's important, but we kind of felt that most people are going to be driving and going to this location, so having it on this north side was probably most applicable. Here's by the main entrance, as noted there on screen right, kind of where the park entrance is. This is the kind of the first opportunity for visitors to see the murals. It'll be the first one for them to see. This one may be a little bit easier. As you can see, there's no drinking fountains for them to navigate through. All these, except for the first one, are all the same size and generally have the same aesthetics and kind of these cutout features on both sides of the men and women's restroom. The next one is over by the playground. That picnic shelter over there gets a lot of use, and then the nearby playground is heavily used. That's one of our most recent new playgrounds over there. So we feel that this one's going to get a lot of exposure for people on this side of the park. So for the park budget, we have $25,000. We are splitting this up. The three that are the same size, they would be the same cost, and then the concessions, because it is distributed across different walls, doing that at a little over $8,000. So for eligibility, we are requiring that the team must be located within the Wichita MSA. Again, that's to help encourage local artists or emerging artists to apply. Again, we know that we have a ton of different murals around town. We think that there's local folks that are able to help with this project and be successful. Selection process, we're selecting 4 artists in total, 1 for each mural. Part of that is to help provide a little bit of their own take and individuality on each different one. Again, we're trying to create a sense of place and difference between them. So hopefully we're not creating having one artist do all of them, something that may be a little the same style for each of them, trying to create a little bit of difference. This is also a mural project, and we do have quite a number of different folks locally that can do the work, and so wanted to spread the project out as much as we could. Selection criteria, most of this is pretty similar. I think one of the things that is important here is, we're really looking for 2-dimensional work. We're not really looking for any 3-dimensional work. So any sculptures or things like that, obviously that doesn't exactly apply to a mural. So I want to make sure that they are the creative process and their balance and ability to manage, understanding composition, making sure that they understand how murals need to be, you know, they need to be long lasting and all that stuff. So making sure that they understand kind of the whole goal for the project. And then submittal requirements. I think the biggest thing to note on the submittal requirements is them ranking their 4 locations based on preference. You know, we figured that, you know, someone may be super tied to, you know, like animals, they can do animals in their sleep. So maybe down by the pony stables and things like that, maybe that makes the most sense. That may be something that they gravitate towards. Over by the concessions area, there's a lot of different things over there. There's that's kind of where the pony rides kind of start. It's also where the train is. So if they want to do something more of the train theme, trying to allow the artists to kind of lean in towards not try to pigeonhole them into a location that maybe they don't feel that their work totally fits in that location. So project timeline, plan would be get this opened at the end of this week. Artist questions due in the beginning of November. And then eventually we're to try to get to notification of reward and the contract and then present it to councils and boards kind of early, or I guess that'd probably be middle of the spring, early summer, and then allow them to start installation and do that throughout the summer. So try to make sure we're doing this where there's good weather for them to do it. Didn't want to try to get them started in the winter and try to, you know, have them deal with that. So I think timeline's working pretty well with this project. Thank you, and I'm happy to stand for any questions.
I heard you say wayfinding multiple times throughout there, but I'm not sure how this helps wayfinding.
Sure, yes. So I think a lot of people, as they go through, they see 3 or 4 different restrooms, and every single time you drive by a restroom, like I thought I passed that restroom, I thought I was over on this side of the park. We felt that having murals would help people find where they are within the park. I know there are different in landscape architecture, I know placemaking and providing different locations, different pieces of artwork to help people create their mental map is very important. So having individual things that are unique within the park help people spatially. So I think that's important. You know, I passed by the Buffalo mural. Why am I over here? So helping people understand kind of where they are spatially when people get turned around pretty easily out there. I know I did multiple times even before I started working for the city. So the main thing was helping.
And I appreciate that. I'm just wondering, I mean, these obviously give destination points once you get there. But as you made the comment, it's hard to find your way down there. So I'm wondering, is there been any thought given to the possibility of some of this also going to some literal wayfinding?
No, I don't think the plan is to do this for actual wayfinding signage. I think that would be inappropriate to try to do literal signs with this project.
I just wonder if wayfinding is really the right term to put in there. I also noticed in here that it didn't indicate that the artist needed to be indicative of the different amenities by those restrooms. It just suggested that that might be a consideration. Do you think it would be better to actually request that their art be specific to the amenities that are nearby?
No, I don't think so. I think that kind of hampers a little bit the creative process for each individual artist to figure out and determine the best location. Now, I may be, you know, in where I sit today, well, maybe we want a mural over by the playground that looks like a playground, but there may be something that I'm missing that someone that is on site says, hey, you know what, there's, you know, let's say there's a canoe launch over in this area. Maybe that makes more sense. Maybe
just wondering whether or not it might be good to, if in fact we are thinking about wayfinding as those murals, try and suggest that the murals relate to what they are near as opposed to, hey, it's open to whatever your interpretation is.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. One of the things that we had in there was amenities and also natural landscape. So if someone wanted to gravitate towards, let's say, something, a natural landscape or, you know, a pond, or let's say they want to do geese or ducks or what have you, that kind of all over the park. Now, I think the biggest thing is making sure that we're not duplicating those things. Obviously we wouldn't want to have someone with like, I don't know, cranes and then another one with cranes. I think we probably need to make sure that there's some balance between the content of the murals, make
I
sure.
guess my last thought was, is there any consideration, possibility of it being a single artist so that there's some cohesion amongst the art within the park as opposed to trying to spread minimal dollars around amongst multiple groups?
Sure, yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things, wanting to get your opinion on that. We felt that it would be beneficial to divvy it up to allow different artists to have a stake in doing something in public art related. I know many of them are commissioned to do non-public work. I think the idea was to help people get their foot in the door with the public art process with the city. Now, if the group here feels differently, I think we're happy to pivot and do that to one artist. But I think that was kind of the intent originally.
And I'll close it out by saying that I because I'm coming back to your term wayfinding in there, which I think is critical down there.
Yeah.
That really this is kind of going counter to wayfinding by suggesting that the target entity points in there represent the areas that they actually represent, or that there is no continuity of design throughout the park, that it's for, variance depending on whoever ends up in there. I'm trying to come back to your wayfinding, and is that's literally what our firm does. I'm kind of going, this is kind of running counter to wayfinding.
So maybe if it's a matter of language, maybe something that talks about landmarks, perhaps
Sure.
instead of wayfinding. I think that's what you're talking about, current landmarks that people can identify and find their way.
Okay.
And I get it, right? You come from a graphic design background and kind of the very practical idea of, here's a bathroom, here's the stables, and it all making sense. I think one of the ideas behind breaking up a budget into smaller projects that we've discussed over the last few years is to open up opportunities for more artists, right? That haven't had an opportunity to participate in the public art program. When we have a project that is $100,000 or even $50,000, right? For some artists, that might be, whatever. That's one of my smaller projects I have in my calendar. For other ones, $50,000 can really seem, really overwhelming. Maybe if you haven't even made that kind of money in a whole year, right? And wages. So having the $5,000 to $10,000 entry point, it really opens it up to a whole nother set of artists who are hungry for this kind of work, and we just haven't had those opportunities in the past. So it's like we have to really strike a balance in these opportunities, especially when we start allocating dollars and we get to that, time of the year, every year going through the CIP budget and figuring out how we allocate funds, is to have those, to consider the artists that we have this kit, right, that we created for artists to learn about the public art program, how to prepare their materials, all of that. And really that is to get the artists that you're trying to reach with this kind of project. Yeah, I agree. I think it's important that we keep those kind of smaller budgets available. But I hear you, having that continuity from a graphic design standpoint, right? But again, and then there's a difference between.
From a graphic standpoint,
Say that again?
you said having a what from
The continuity, the visual continuity, right? Right. I understand where you're coming from with that.
I agree.
But again, this is the difference between a graphic design project versus more of a public art project, right? That
And I keep going back to the comment about this being a wayfinding project, and if that's the foundation of it, I'm kind of going, it's not helping wayfinding.
Sure. So maybe again, the language should be landmarks. Maybe it makes more sense, right? We're creating landmarks in the park that people can identify and find a way around, maybe.
Yeah, I think landmark is more appropriate.
Maybe that can help with some of the potential confusion, perhaps. But yeah.
I would second your suggestion then.
Sure. Thank you, Bill.
Would it be difficult to have, if we end up with, multiple artists, would it be difficult to have them all have one element that might be similar between all these murals? When we design parks, we try and have consistent elements, so that you're in O.J. Watson Park.
Sure.
But, you know, if we're doing multiple artists, maybe it would be difficult. I don't know. I'm not an artist, but
Yeah.
is there, and then kind of go back to Bill's, you know, thought on that wayfinding or that just kind of that identity of those areas. If there was something consistent, maybe it's a font, you know, if they're putting some letter, you know, some words or something on there, everybody's using the same font or stuff.
Sure. Sure. I mean, there's no requirements for any kind of
Consistent.
type, right? To go on this, there's no words that will be
I mean,
used.
we could always add words or make that part of the requirement.
If it makes sense, sure,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
your
sure.
purposes.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
we're open for, you know.
At that point, though, I mean, this isn't signage.
Yeah.
It's not what you are contracting them for, that this is intended as public art. And I think, you know, maybe just cleaning up some of that verbiage that I play sand volleyball out there and I also get turned around in that park every single time. I don't understand how I see the volleyball here, but yet I have to go all the way around and then I'm always turned around every time. But so I think what you're doing is creating just identifiable spaces, but also I feel like this is more comparable to like when we do our, just recently did all the libraries and that we are seeking unique artists and unique pieces of artwork to create distinguishable spaces, not a true, this is not signage.
Yeah. And I don't think I was suggesting that it be signage, nor was I suggesting.
Just
it be
what
font
we
that
need to do
be
to-
associated with it. I'm, you know, going back, Janelle, to your comment about the libraries, you know, one of the things that we are very adherent to is the idea that those artists bring things that are relevant to that specific library and speak to the theme of that specific library or installation. And frankly, I'm kind of wandering this down to, it's going to be nice, I'm sure, when we're all done, but we're going to have 4 disparate pieces of art that are on the outsides of restrooms down there based off of your proposal. And it, you know, they may be pretty pieces of art or they may be crappy pieces of art. I don't know. We don't know yet. But in fact, there will be no continuity to them, nor will there be any purpose of place going into them based off of what we've been given as proposal.
And would that help with what we're trying to do though? If we're trying to find identifiable pieces, then if they all don't match, right? Then maybe that helps you with understanding where you are, right, physically.
Yeah.
If in fact there's
And
no
I'm just going back to the
continuity.
way this was written, trying
Sure.
to
Sure.
say that we're guiding people. I'm going, yeah, we're really not. We're putting up 4 pieces of art.
What if there's something in the call that suggests like preference will be given to artists who consider thematic use of trains or nature or
Yeah.
canoeing or,
Park activities.
and activities that are consistent in this park? As a, you don't need to do this, but that will be factored into the selection process and preference could be given.
So we had it as an RFQ, so not receiving, I guess it'd be a letter of interest, but we could read that. I wonder if it makes sense and totally, please shoot me down if this is wrong. I wonder if it makes sense to maybe select based off of a team, maybe, does that make sense? Where we are now asking for a group to, group of 4s to submit. That way there's some continuity, but then at that point, you're now asking them to all relate to each other. Now you have a group and there's one person to kind of answer to. I guess I'm trying to figure out a way to kind of make sure that we are finding continuity without, because who knows what we're going to get with 4 going their own path.
I would favor the individualism of these projects and the entry point of being artists who are at different points in their career.
Something that is a guide that brings those 4 together is.
Just as a
Is there
preference will be given.
is there any language?
Else, but yeah.
Sure.
You're asking for a letter of interest, and I wonder if that's where you have artists talk about how this mural would fit within this park, perhaps.
In that specific location.
And location, right? Both, right? It should address the location and the park itself. Maybe there's a letter of interest where that can be addressed by the artist, and that gives you and your committee a way to kind of see who is talking about that.
So we
specifically.
had here that we asked them to provide preference, rate their 4 locations. Because I think, qualifications was that we were hoping that we would make sure that we had, we'll choose the top 4 and then they'd be, I don't want to say assigned, but we go through the.
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Sorry, we would have 4 of them, submit. We pick the top 4 out of everyone that submitted. And then based on our preferential ranking on location, we provide them with each individual one. I wonder if maybe it makes sense that they are required to submit for one. Does that make sense? That way they are, they have a specific one. Hey, I have this vision that I want to do for the entrance one or this one. So that way they don't get pigeonholed into one that maybe doesn't make sense. Because right now we're kind of picking the top, the cream of, top 4, and then that would go. I wonder if maybe we'd have to choose one based on each specific location.
Tim, could you go back to the vision slide? I think it's slide number 5.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at right now.
I think that this might, maybe one more back.
Yeah. I think
This might, those bullet points and kind of the goals of the project identify the theme. So it is covered in the prospectus a little bit. And just to remind you that the concept designs and 30% designs come back. So this is really just to solicit for the artists. Once the artists work with the project team, develop an initial concept, then they'll come back to design council. But I think we have some initial kind of thematic things pulled out in the project vision. I'll hold it.
And I like that this says this can represent, not that it has to.
It's still open for a lot of artistic interpretation, but does provide some guidance.
I wonder, just for the sake of making sure that this is not, that they don't gloss over this like maybe a lot of this just did now, that some of this can be put into the LOI, right? Like repeat it again. The LOI is an opportunity for them to talk about this. I don't know if that would help out since we all kind of missed it.
What the LOI says right now, but address how your proposal will include project vision or meet the project vision.
The project vision, right? Does that make sense to you guys?
Yep, that makes sense to me.
We need a
So they would need to include the project vision in the letter of interest.
Say that again?
So they would need to include how they will respond to the project vision in their letter of interest.
Sure, or at least talk about that, right? Maybe not give you a full description of what they're gonna design, but maybe how they plan to. Because that gives us an opportunity, give an artist an opportunity to talk about inspiration. Maybe there's a specific feature in the park they want to focus on. It kind of opens it up so they can tell you a little bit more about where they want to go. Understanding they're gonna have to come back here, right, for all of us to look at this again. So there's room for them to still evolve the design.
No design proposals are being solicited.
Correct.
in the RFQ.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Down the road.
You said,
So with the RFQ, no design proposals are being solicited. Selecting artists based on their past work, and their qualifications.
Right. And that's where the letter again can help maybe shape some of that.
Letter of interest asks artists to talk about their project approach, their past experience, how they work with teams, et cetera, and any thematic approach they might take to the project.
Okay, so how do we feel about this? Do we have other comments that we want to?
Can I ask just a question, or Tim, if you could address the other art component that's also in development
Oh.
at OJ Watson? It's not really attached to the mural project, but just so you're all aware of an additional art component that will eventually come to design council. You're prepared to talk.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
the
sure.
other.
So we have $150,000 dedicated to OJ Watson Park. So there's this mural component, and then there would be a sculptural element. I think right now, trying to nail down exactly where that should probably live. I think many folks are kind of gravitating towards something over by the Seasons venue. The Seasons venue gets booked out months and months in advance. There's been weddings, there's been parties, there's been reunions, what have you there. We feel that that's probably a great location to show off something special and make that space even better than it already is. knowing that it is one of the most used and booked out spaces that we have, at least in the park system. So I think that's kind of the main idea would be a sculpture element of some sort over at Seasons venue. And the remaining of the funds would then go towards that. So that, again, that would be a future one to come to you, but there is, thank you, Lindsay, there is another component for the rest of the funding dedicated to O.J. Watson Park. Didn't think 150 for murals totally made sense.
So Jana, based off of this conversation, what are the suggestions that we're recommending?
Sorry, Bill. Based on this entire conversation that's been had, what motions should be made?
Well, I'm actually asking, there've been a lot of suggestions made, but we need to make a motion. Or else there are notes that have been taken that you're going to be coming back with or making modifications to this.
I believe what we talked about is to maybe change the language from wayfinding to landmarks, something along those lines that speaks to how these areas will help people find themselves in the park. And that will reiterate the vision section on the letter of interest so that they know to include their vision for the mural in their letter of interest.
So if I could just propose just some clean language on item number 3, submit a 1-page letter of interest with a brief description of your project approach and how it connects to the project vision. Would that suffice for the committee, for the council?
Yeah, because they can go back to that.
Just adding in how it connects to the project vision.
And then modifying anything from wayfinding to landmarks. That may be something that we can go back to in the art vision. Want to make sure that we are, contextually appropriate. Mural locations. We can add a little bit of language in here to make sure that it is more of a landmark intent.
What's the term wayfinding used?
I think that may have just been my verb.
I don't think it was. I think it was just part of your presentation. I don't think it's included in the RFQ itself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
I recall.
So with that, can we entertain a motion perhaps on somebody?
Motion to approve, moving forward with the proposed changes, to the language in the proposal.
Do we have a second? Mention now. Do you have any discussion on the motion? No. Okay, so we're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank
I was
you.
gonna say, I appreciate everyone's comment. This is, we want to have discussion on these projects. This is exactly what we need scrutiny from all of you. So I encourage it.
Jana, my comment on the wayfinding was based out of that background information that we were provided on the bottom of the first paragraph that closes out by talking about.
Oh, in the agenda report itself. Okay. Okay. And Tim will check and see if that term is used in the RFQ, but I don't believe it is.
Oh,
But if it is, it'll be changed.
Well, thank you. Now we're moving to the next agenda item. We have the Woodland Park North Gateway. Also, RFQ. Are we also gonna talk about that one?
Yep, you got me for this one and the one after.
Awesome. Yep.
So this one's for Woodland Park North. A gateway sculpture is envisioned. I think this was an interesting project. You can see that the issue and qualification dates are TBD. Funding was allocated to Woodland Park. There's some background shifting that we're gonna need to do to make sure everything bobs and weaves with the funding to make sure. So that's kind of why the dates are TBD, but we wanted to come and bring this before you so that we're able to kind of hit the ground running once we have everything lined up on the back end of things. So
Before you jump in, can I just
Sure.
ask a clarifying?
Yeah, go for it.
Just because I'm familiar with what's going on in the park. Are these dollars, CIP dollars, is that different from the park money that at some point they had?
Yes, that is correct. So this is CIP money, not, this is our public art CIP, not, park CIP. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, because I know there was like a history walk that we're working on, and there was
Separate project.
separate, and that's still,
Hopefully they can complement.
thank you.
Yep, so introduction, this is for $50,000 in Woodland Park North. Just kind of get a little variance. I think if you know where Nomar is, along 21st Street and Broadway, if you head west, that's continue heading west. That's where the project is, pretty much in between the Twin Lakes development area and Nomar. So again, it's along 21st Street. We'll show you a plan here in a moment to kind of show where it is if you're not too familiar. This one is again encouraging emerging artists to apply for this one, $50,000. So kind of the lower end of our sculptural project, typically for money, I think some of our other ones, range up to over $200,000. So this is kind of on the smaller side of that. So we feel like there's a number of different emerging artists and people that can do a good job with this one. Again, this is located in the North End community. As Armando mentioned earlier, there is a planned history walk planned within the park. The plan or the goal is for this to help complement that history walk. I've seen some of the panels for that, and it is quite impressive. And the history there is I think, going to be well received within the community that are able to see that. I will note that Woodland Park we feel is a great opportunity for public art, in part that it does hold a number of different community events. It is a hub within Open Streets Nomar, so it is used heavily and is a valuable piece of the park system in that part of the community. So a little bit of park background, you can kind of see here. The Lower Arkansas River runs right along here. There's a trail that runs through, let's see if the mouse works, along 21st Street, and it dives down into the park and continues along the river. So we are seeing and have some, we know that's being used heavily for the people that are using trails. Once we have these larger trail systems, we do know that they do get used a little bit more than just your standard sidewalk. There is a loop around the park, so there are people that are walking through here, even if it's just around the park or using it as a way to get from point A to point B. And this is kind of a transitional area in between point A and B. So the park, as I kind of mentioned, the park has a lot of history. It's been a park for over 100 years. And La Familia is located within the park. It is located right here. So know that there are people that are using the park that are going there for many reasons, aside from the basketball court, the playground, and some of the ball fields. And there's a nice shelter in the park as well. One thing to note on circulation, there is a crosswalk right here. It is a signalized crosswalk. Knowing that is one of the easiest and safest ways for individuals north of the park to get to the park or get to the trail system. We feel that this is a key asset to pedestrian usage within the park. One thing, as I kind of mentioned earlier, the history walk, I think the exact locations are still being finalized, but the main idea is going to be kind of a spine down the middle here. So individuals that are using the main trail would be seeing the history walk, at least part of the history walk, and then this red area here, ideally where the gateway would be. Again, open to interpretation or feedback on that location, but that's the general location we felt would be appropriate, in part due to the how much use 21st Street gets. So we're getting vehicular access, views into the park, things along those lines, as well as the pedestrian access that we're seeing coming from the neighborhood to the north and along the trail. So again, a little bit more on the location here. Again, you can see the crosswalk. You can see the trail here at the bottom. Where in this, I think this is probably the artist, whoever selected, to figure out exactly where they want that. If they want to span across this sidewalk, or maybe they do both. I think that's really up to the artist and how they feel their work is going to fit best onto the site. There is a light pole here, so that is beneficial if there does, or there wants to be some lighting elements that is available. Their access at least is close by. Again, there, I think this is kind of a good synergy spot for a number of different reasons. Kind of going to the inspiration images, there's a wide range of gateway art here. I don't think that we want to maybe pigeonhole the artist into a certain style. There are some gateways that connect over the top. They can be pillars on the side. Really an interpretation of what gateway means, I think, is leaving that open to the artist. If that is something overhead or if that's just adjacent to the site, I think that makes sense. Again, I think the main thing is to try to provide a formal and interesting entrance into the park, or something that kind of serves as a bit of a something eye-catching for the community as they live and transition around throughout that community. I think color is kind of one of the biggest things that we're looking for, something colorful, exciting, something that fits contextually. There's a lot of color over at Nomar. Doesn't need to be the same color, but something that is vibrant and kind of make sure it fits contextually. Again, the project budget, we have $50,000 for the project. Eligibility, this would be a nationwide call for artists, just kind of given the uniqueness of it. Being a sculpture element, but a gateway of some sort. Again, leaving that open, but knowing that there could be a variety of different approaches to the project, whether that involves lighting specialists, ceramicists, people that are, metal workers, what have you. We do have a lot of people valuable here in Wichita, but thought it'd be appropriate to do it as a call nationally. As I mentioned earlier, the total dates or TBD, again, kind of need that background funding and some shifting to move around before we put it out. But we do intend for that to be here in the near future. Don't plan for this to drag out for months on end. Selection criteria, again, the biggest thing here is making sure that they've done large three-dimensional work, make sure that we are finding someone who had the experience of doing something this large and something that fits safely within the public fabric. Again, trying to make sure that they hit milestones and budgets and things like that. So that's, again, what their qualifications that are so important. And submittal here, I think one thing to note is the location, or noting why they're interested in the project and why. I think there's a lot of history in this project. We can find someone that can really dive into to the history of the park and the community and do something really unique and special here. Again, the timeline TBD for those, again, those will get flushed out once we get the background aligned. Thank you. I have any questions.
Got questions? I do have a question about, are you guys going straight to just qualification on RFQ? Is there going to be a short listing for proposals or hiring directly from the RFQ?
Our approach right now would be to, just given the limitation on the budget, figure that may be more well spent not doing an RFP. Now, if we want to see that, that's totally fine by us. If we want to change gears, I think it's mostly given the budget and trying to, but always open for.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I understand you to say that there's a larger project at that park that's going on that this might relate to.
Yeah, they're doing a history walk. They have these big panels. They're kind of going to be installed along the pathways as well. They kind of tells a history of the neighborhood. There's photographs and a lot of narrative.
Just wondering whether or not there's some continuity between the projects and if it might be advisable to make the applicants aware of that. And even if some of the information is already available to them so that they can express an interest.
They've been designed already, right?
Yeah, they have. That's a great point. I'll check with park staff, but I don't see a reason why we couldn't add those panels into the RFQ so that they are aware of what's going on. It might help maybe in get a few-
Context.
Yeah, some context. It might get a few people a little bit more excited about it, just because they can read through the history and know the significance of the site and of the
Yeah.
project. So I think that's a
I think
great
that would be
idea.
great. That's a great point. Yeah, because they go back 100 years with the history.
Did you know that that pathway running north and south there is literally about 50 feet to the west of where the interurban used to run?
Oh, no.
It literally jumped the river coming out of Riverside there to about the base of that path. And then it went north up Mascot Street and then headed on out of the city towards Valley Center and Hutchinson.
That's wild. Janelle?
And what I understood, I think in one point you said that you are a great opportunity for emerging artists, but then also later, I think one of the artists, like, I don't know if it was requirements, but it was that of similar size and scope projects completed. I know we've had this on some other of ours that we kind of adjusted that language to better encourage some emerging artists. And
I feel like it's like a boilerplate, right, copy and paste type.
I guess on here it's softer. Maybe it was just some of the verbiage that was stated, because it just says demonstrate experience in sculptures and in materials.
Yeah, and when we talk about emerging artists, we are not talking about artists who have never built anything before, made anything before.
Yeah, I thought I just heard something that said that of similar size and scope.
Yeah.
And, I think this is an opportunity, particularly with this budget, that if somebody that's maybe done something of a smaller scale, an opportunity to kind of scale up.
Scale up.
Yeah, on the submittal requirements, it's where I think you saw that, is submit 5 to 10 images of relevant examples, past work, what have you.
But it just that says to state, including scale, budget, medium. It doesn't say comparable. So I think you're okay. I just wanted to make.
Yeah.
Sure.
I
Yeah, I don't
appreciate
think we
that.
want to box anyone out from at least applying.
I think we're good.
And again, just to clarify, what is the thing you guys are waiting for to figure out when to put this out? The dates and all of that,
Oh, sure.
the
Yeah.
TBD.
There.
Interested,
Yeah,
you'd
thank
rather.
you.
We had intended to initiate the funding with city council at tomorrow's city council meeting. That agenda item was pulled because we're still trying to figure out where it falls in the CIP. This project was reallocation of funding last year.
Right.
And it didn't make the CIP book. So we're just going through some administrative clarification on where we're borrowing from another project in order to make this project possible. So design council did make an allocation. We're just now figuring out how to interpret that allocation. Finance. So
Stuff.
I would anticipate, we'll have it figured out within the next 30 days and that we would be going to city council in, I hope, November to initiate funds. So this really just pushes back the call 30 to 60 days.
Gotcha.
Is what I think is going to happen today. So, but once we solidify that process, we should get moving.
Yep, that makes sense. Thank you.
Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's great. I think, ideally, we're heading into fall, so I think that kind of gives us a bit of time to go through design and try to look for installation in the middle of next year.
I'll also offer that the History Walk project, it's ideally going to be installed before the end of the calendar year is maybe our current goal.
Okay.
It's still in or maybe fabrication is completed on those and just waiting on installation at this point.
I think that's correct.
Ideally, we would have been able to do the projects together. Here we are, that didn't happen. So there's no sense of urgency on this one necessarily. We just wanted to complement the History Walk signs once it's up and running.
So far, we've talked about including in the RFQ, the history project for context for whoever's applying for this. Is there anything else that? Okay. Then can we entertain a motion for this item?
Move that we approve the RFQ with the addition of the history walk panels for reference for the artists.
Thank you. Second. Okay, any discussion on the motion? No, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously with the comments. Thank you. All right.
Anna, do you
Back.
Carrie? Yeah, we're back. Do you know? Oh, okay. Wonderful. So we have our representative from the design and artist team. I'll go through a little bit of the background and then I'll turn it over to him. Carrie, if you can hear me, if you're still on, please just let me know when you want me to advance the slide. I'm happy to do so.
Sounds good.
All righty, so Crystal Prairie Lake Park, phase one artwork, 30%. So phase one includes a multi-use trail along Hoover. There's a street crossing, a gravel parking lot within the park, and then fencing between the park and the landfill. So generally pretty straightforward. But the great thing is that we do have some artwork to this project, and I think it's going to be make this trail unique and different than just a standard trail. One of the things to note is that it does cross under K96, so we are having to do some modifications underneath the bridge there. And that's kind of where a lot of the engineering is taking place right now. But we'll get into the to the overall plan. You can kind of see exactly where the art falls in this project. I will note that RDG has been working on Crystal Prairie Lake Park for over 16 years, so they know the site very well. And then late last year, Design Council approved RDG to be the artist for phase one. And then on January 7th, that went to City Council as part of a supplemental design agreement to pull them in for design and art services. So it took a little while for us to get the exact alignment of the trail done, but now that we have that pretty well solidified, we can now move forward with the location for the artwork. Again, here's a general overview of the plan. You can see there's that new fence between the landfill and the park, that gravel parking lot. This is Hoover Road right through here. Eventually, we'll know that the trail eventually will be connecting down to Sedgwick County Park. So there's some good synergy in terms of usage, distant usage between pedestrians and bicyclists and things like that to connect between the two parks. We're envisioning quite those kind of long distance bicyclists and walkers and runners and all those to hopefully use this multi-use trail to connect between the two parks. The plan would be for the seating node to be with the public art right here. We feel that that's a great location, in part because this whole neighborhood here, we have a pedestrian crossing here. This will be help solidify or help be a welcoming area for those that are coming across through this neighborhood, and also people that are coming up north into the park along the trail. Again, future phases will be expanding out into the park. We wanted to make sure that we got something along Hoover Road to begin the introduction of folks into the park, but eventually it will be expanding into the park. The exact alignment of those trails are still, kind of go through and do the engineering, the surveying and all that. But this first phase is along Hoover Road right here. Then Carrie, I turn it on over to you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tim. As Tim mentioned, we looked at this location as kind of the gateway, we'll say the southwest gateway into Crystal Prairie Lake Park, with the sidewalk connection coming from the west to the neighborhood, and then of course the main trail going north and south along Hoover Road there. Next slide. So we worked with our art studio here in-house, coming up with different ideas related to this gateway and interpretation. We also looked way back at our master plan document from 2008, and we like the idea of landform in the park as a way to help define space, but also to give visual interest within the park, since it is fairly flat. And you also have this giant mound feature, probably the highest elevation in Wichita right next to it. So this idea of landform has always been important part of the design for Crystal Prairie Lake Park. Next slide. So we're looking at creating these landforms to help define this gateway space. And then we're looking at using benches, precast benches that cut into these landforms. Next slide. This gives a little bit more close up here. You can see the benches kind of cutting into the hillsides and the landform. We'd have native landscaping around these areas. Next slide. This gives a little bit more detail. So we want to help kind of tell the story of the kind of south central Kansas biomes too. So we're looking at this cutting into the soil basically and expressing that. We'll probably be using precasts to help bank that soil there, and then we'll be adding these clay bars to help provide visual interest to and celebrate the colors of nature in the park area. Next slide. This is just another image of how that bench might be integrated, but the clay bars will be fabricated and designed by our art studio. And those are the color kind of linear images there, or linear colors that you see on the screen there. Also looking at maybe imprinting some type of words that might express nature and the natural elements of Crystal Prairie Lake Park. Next slide. So here's our, we'll be working with the manufacturer to help create these kind of precast retaining walls that'll be banked into the landforms. And then we'll have a precast bench that will come out from that precast wall. Next slide. And then here's a look at the clay bars that will be created by our art studio. We've still yet to pick out the actual colors for this. We'll be working with the city on kind of what those colors might be, and even what maybe some words we might imprint on these clay bars. Next slide. So you can see we can come up with a lot of different colors. We may look at more natural kind of hues as we move forward in the design. Next slide. And I think that's about it. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, given that we're looking at some precast examples for benches, I'm assuming that feels pretty set in stone. And we have a 30% design right now. What elements do you foresee evolving from what you presented today so that we can look at some of those?
Yeah, we see the probably clay bars evolving a little bit, and we haven't created final documents at all. We're probably at maybe 30 or 40% on the actual bench design. We've been working with a manufacturer just to get some initial costs. So now we're going to be working kind of more on the details of those benches and the clay bars.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, do we have, yeah.
So for the clay bars, are you foreseeing those being recessed into the precast back portion of the bench, I guess? It looks
Correct.
in that
Yep.
image, they're kind of three-dimensional.
Yep, correct. They'd be cast into they would probably be applied after, since the precast bench will be in first, and then there'll be recesses in that precast kind of backing.
Okay. Do you see those varying in size too, like it's shown here in this image?
Yeah, yep.
That's all, thank you.
Thanks, Emma. Nick?
So just for clarification, so I live in the neighborhood just right west of this. I love how all the mounting and everything, you know, how we're using that landform as art here. One concern that I have though is we have a lot of crime in our neighborhood because we're isolated. this feels like we're providing a lot of hiding spots. The way that this is all shaped out, especially when you put the native grasses and everything on top of here. I'm a little bit concerned. This could kind of help with that crime issue that we're having. And, create maybe a safety concern for people even using it. Has there been any thought about, the visual?
Maybe
Yeah,
lighting.
that's,
I don't know that would even help. I mean, honestly, looking at the way that this is situated on the site plan, it just looks to me like as you're driving by, you're not going to be able to see up in those seating nodes that are especially on the west side there.
yeah, that's actually something we've talked to the city about, and the city has had the same comments too. And we're looking at reducing this is an older drawing, actually. We've already looked at reducing the heights of those mounds. And again, these images too were created several months ago. So we've been working through reducing the heights of the mounds and, understanding what grasses will be on there. There'll probably be a low, like maybe prairie drop seed, maybe even lower than that, could be a grama or something that we want to, be able to see into these areas and not, like you said, provide, hiding spots for nefarious activities. And it also, when bicyclists are, riding by or walkers riding by, they can see into the space. When they come up on it, they're not going to be surprised by anybody kind of being in the space. So that's a good comment.
I think my other question too is, so I think I seen we have $50,000 budgeted for this. This feels to me more than $50,000. Is there some of the trail funds that'll be used? Like the landscaper, is there elements that are specifically within that $50,000 art budget dedicated?
Yes, yeah, the plan would be to use, since they're providing seating opportunities would be part of the project. The art component of that would be for these colored ceramic pieces that would fit into it.
So the seat, the precast concrete seat and the walls, would that be?
Yeah, that'd be part of
That's all part of it.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, I think that's why we went with an in-house, we approved the in-house design so that it would be all kind of part of, it would be an add-on
To do that, yeah.
to what they were doing and help with the budget.
So is this is all being bid out and installed by a general contractor?
Yes, yeah.
I know a couple of comments have been made about the clay bars in there. I might just throw out, and I do get that this is quasi preliminary for you guys, but as I look at those and I realized just a rendering, they look really thin and maybe not as considered as the rest of the project. I'd really love to see that there's a possibility that you think about whatever that art is, if they're clay bars or if they're shapes or however they're put in there, that they actually have some relationship to this and not just be a random group of bars that have been cast and thrown against the wall.
Yep, I had the same thoughts, Bill. And again, we're looking at 30%, so we'll have a more developed design, but I agree, right now they feel kind of
Is he still there?
secondary.
Leave us.
No, Carrie, you still there?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, we definitely will look at that as we move into design.
Carrie, can you speak a little bit about kind of the orientation of the clay bars and kind of the discussions that we had with Doug, kind of preliminary or leading up to this?
Yeah, the orientation, I mean, somewhat relates to kind of roots that you would see in a soil profile, basically. So expressing that somehow. Originally, we had looked at some different options of like gunite or something like that to really like play up the soil profile aspect of cutting into the hill. But that was getting a little too expensive for the project budget. So that's why we're just going with this kind of simple precast cut into the hillside. And then the clay bars are actually serving kind of as that soil texture, basically, since that precast will be fairly smooth. I don't know.
Be authentic to the area and just show a profile of layers of garbage.
What's that?
I'm being facetious.
Okay.
Something else to consider, I know that you have here listed as terracotta. And if this is true terracotta, then, you know, I have concerns with just the weather and whether it won't last if it's real terracotta. I think you're early on in your design to really think about the clay element.
Be a high
Yeah.
fire.
It needs to be a high fire tile with ceramic
Yeah,
products.
yep, yep. Yeah, we've our art studios installed millions of probably terracotta pieces around the region. So I totally have faith in their product.
Yep.
And their expertise.
All right. So again, we're looking at 30% conceptual progress. Do we have any more comments? We heard from the landscape architects. Yes.
Here's a question for folks. In terms of the height, Carrie, do you know what the height of these berms are now? Kind of curious on the group, on what seems or feels kind of appropriate for that. I know that safety is kind of a concern, but want to make sure that we are providing something that we feel comfortable. That I don't want to limit the ceramic tiles and make them, you know, super small so that it's not really noticeable. So interested in kind of hearing that guidance from this group on height.
I don't know.
Yeah, just to interject, the highest we were looking at right now is probably like 3 feet, right at the kind of precast, and then the berm would build up. You know, if it would get any higher, it'd be further away from the basically seating area. So if we think that needs to be lower, or any thoughts around that, we'd be happy to hear them.
I think 3 feet is what you're gonna want in order to allow room for a bench at a standard height and a back rest for the bench.
Nick, you brought up the concern of safety over there and the likes, and obviously there's going to be growies on top of the berms as well. I don't know that area well enough to know if that's a major concern, if you want to throw something in this motion to accommodate for that, or.
I'm just looking at the design, you know, I mean, I love the design, but I feel like it needs some more work. Maybe it's opened up a little bit more or something. It's just, I don't know. I mean, this bike path is very, very isolated. There's a rough neighborhood just north of us that we get a lot of crime from. Our neighborhood, the neighborhood directly north, you know, it's a new neighborhood, but our cars are getting broken into. We had one of our neighbors' truck, it was sitting out of his driveway running, and somebody jumped in it with his kids in it and drove off. I mean, there's some significant crime happening out here.
They get the kids back?
They got them back, yes. But I mean, it's stuff like that. It's not just petty crime.
Sure.
And so I don't know, I'm concerned that we would create something like this area, and it would start inviting even more stuff, you know, to start happening. Especially even opening up this park now, which is exciting. You know, allowing people into this park, but it's very isolated. It's a large park, not going to be a lot of visual access through this area.
But I guess to kind of go back to the site plan here, again, some of these berms and mounting has changed. So kind of is your thought that maybe more visibility into from the street, or are you thinking more along the pedestrian way?
I think both.
Oh, okay.
But you know, it's almost like those two mounds that are on the west side towards the street. Maybe they're gone. You know, maybe we just open it up and, you know, you have some mounting and some berms that kind of open up the view down into the park, but I don't know. I don't want to make you have to redesign everything, but again.
And again, you know, these are an opportunity for us, like, to give recommendations, right, on how this could evolve based on the expertise. And again, it's 30%, right? So there's still room for evolution.
But you know, if we're talking a 3 foot tall wall and we're talking prairie drop seed, that's, you know, another 2.5 feet. So now we're talking 5-6 foot on these berms, you know. Again, I really like the design. I like the style, you know, that we're looking at here. think generally, it's just, I think it's a concern from probably sounds like from everyone in terms of just making sure that the design makes sense with security concerns around the area.
Okay.
And, lighting's not a bad idea. If we got a light out there, but I don't think that's gonna solve it. Just need to get out there, neighborhood, watch the place. Well, we've been doing that too.
It was two-sided versus four-sided, so the two sides
That's what I'm wondering.
kind of facing the back of the
Yeah.
park.
And then you can.
Away from the street, you don't
color
see anything.
on the Street too, yeah,
And maybe they were larger versus
maybe, yeah.
they are now.
Because all of these are considerations to
Yeah.
take in. Okay, do we feel comfortable to make a motion on the 30th?
Just add in one more comment, just to remind you how the process works. Design council approves something or doesn't approve something today, that recommendation goes to city council for approval. City council can send it back or move the project along as well. So keep in mind, whatever you're recommending today will then go to city council for recommendation.
Except we're at 30%, right? So it'll be until,
It goes now.
it goes to now, at 30%.
And part of that goal was to ensure that if wholesale design changes need to be made, they were done before we had sunk a bunch of its cost into it. So we can make changes now versus once we get too far in the design process. At least that's what we're doing right now. Still relatively.
Yes, thank you for the reminder. I totally
Is
forgot
the,
about that.
is the thought then to make a motion to approve with these considerations, or given how dynamic I think some of this sounds, it might be, do we just not approve and request it back with the considerations? Is that a?
Do either.
Can do either, right? So we're at 30%, meaning that we're looking at a fairly early proposal, right? Almost conceptual, one could argue. So we could approve it to see how it evolves at the 60%, which will be the next time when it comes in front of us. Or a motion could be made to not approve it and to have them come back at 30% again, but with a different approach. It could be either.
So if we say come back at 30% again, does city council see it then, or do you?
City council wouldn't see it until design council approves something.
30%, okay.
So that's the difference between the approach. It's city council.
There's also no guarantee the city council is going to actually look at any of this and have a comment on it either. It's really more of a bringing them an opportunity to look at it and have any comments. Say that again?
District
Johnston's.
It was Councilmember Ballard. Yeah, her district wraps. It's an interesting alignment.
Well, I had a question. Carrie, is Carrie still on the line?
Yep.
Hey, Carrie, you said that at one point you had, when you guys were designing, you had conversations with the city about the security and some of the issues with the crime and what have you. What came of that conversation? What direction were you given from those folks?
Yeah, it was lowering the berms and just creating more visual into the space. That was kind of the primary.
And is this what they saw, what we're seeing out today? Is this what city folks saw as well?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
And then we've been revising it since then.
Let's go to Dab.
It is not into the dam. They can. Yeah, we have it. Yeah.
It does feel like we're looking at old work after hearing their comments and that this is what the city saw. We don't have to approve it. Again, we can approve it with the caveat, with the conversation we had. We can choose not to approve it and come back at 30% again.
I'm just thinking if we don't approve it, then hopefully we give them good direction to, if they're going to be coming back to us so that they've got a direction to start moving in.
Sure.
I guess one question, are you guys approving the art? Because if it's the art itself, it's the clay bars part of it. The landforms and benches are, like Tim said, are part of the construction project. So I just wanted to kind of understand that.
Okay, so we're looking at the clay bars and the bench. or art integration?
I think just the clay bars.
The clay bar.
Yeah, just the clay bars.
Just the clay bars.
Yeah.
The landform is not part of our,
That's where I was trying to.
General project design is within the scope of the design.
It is. It is.
If it were to go to DAB, is that typically before or after a 30% or it could be anything?
It depends on the project.
Depends on the project. The art elements don't always go to DAB. That's why we have design council. So, but if the whole project goes, art could be incorporated in that. So I'd be curious what DAB would say or what they would recommend.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I think for us, the rural project, and I'll go back to the rural project is, I think in nature, fairly straightforward. A 10-foot trail that goes underneath K96, there's a parking lot and a seating node. So I think that's kind of the approach that it's pretty standard for what we typically do on projects. I think the art component is where this kind of gets changed in the seating node. Generally a parking lot, trail, those things are kind of standard for what we generally do. I think the trail on K96, I think is kind of always, that is that was always going to pretty much continue north. It was built as a 10-foot path, so that was kind of the intent. Doesn't mean we can't go and present, but again, I think that was kind of the approach, because that it was fairly typical for this type of project.
Okay, so here we stand. So we're looking at two things. We're looking at the overall design of this feature, right? Which is landscaping, the design of it all. And that there seems to be a lot of questions about safety and how that can be resolved. And then we're looking at the art element, which is those clay bars specifically, which we're not necessarily looking at much, perhaps, in terms of design at 30%, even at a conceptual phase. So that's what we have right now. We do have a say-so on overall design for these features, and we certainly have a say-so on the art elements. So given what we know, this has gone to city. The city has also had similar comments about safety. Hasn't gone to DAB, it could. It kind of depends on the project team, how they want to go. And there's a $50,000 budget, correct?
Yeah, correct. This is $50,000
Right.
budget. Part of that is going to RDG's studio. As noted, they were approved by design council contract. So part of it's going for them. And then
Sure.
Yeah, correct.
So how do we feel about this project? How direction we want to go? Again, we're not here to design it or to give them, right, to tell them how to design it, but we are here to give our professional opinions. Also, for those of us who live in the neighborhoods, we often have some really good insights, like you just did, Nick, about, the context. So all of those things are part of it, right? It's great. So how do we feel about this? We're ready
so
for,
my general thought is that if there's an issue up there, there's an issue up there. And whether there's 3 foot worth of berming or 0 foot worth of berming, you're still not going to, mediate you're going to continue to have an issue there, period. 3 foot worth of berming, you're the landscape architect, so I trust you. Doesn't seem like much to me. Maybe more challenging to have somebody hide behind or whatever, but once you get landscaping in there, I don't know. But it sounds like you're going to have an issue up there in that area until it starts to really, the park plays out and becomes more populated and developed. So I don't know that any level of, even if they went back and decided to go no berms at all, you're still going to have that issue up there because you're going to have people out there on a trail that's not populated that,
It is close to the road, though. I mean, that's the good part. The trail's right there. So I don't know. I don't feel good about the design. the way it is right now, just for the safety.
Yeah, I think one, something that
Can you speak up? I'm having to hurry to the
Sorry.
microphone.
I mumble, so thank you for saying that. So I think one thing that when we're approaching this is kind of how it fits into the master plan long-term. Ideally, the master plan had an amphitheater and a lot of use out here. Now, what that looks like 5, 10, 15 years from now, I think it's still up for interpretation. I think our approach to this and putting the seating note here specifically was to help build off of that in the future. So again, we don't know what the future holds. But I understand, Nick, I understand your point, and I think we're trying to find that balance of what works now, not knowing the future of this, because hypothetically, ideally, we have hundreds and thousands of people out here, on a daily basis, or weekly basis out here. But that doesn't fix that doesn't address how it is right now, because we don't know when that's gonna happen. So I think, just kind of want to provide that kind of, as we were approaching that in some ways, so.
And again, and if whenever the motion is made, we can separate these two elements, right, and have comments specific to those, whatever that motion is, where we have the overall design element and then we have the art element.
Just take a stab at those.
Over it.
I would make a motion that I would not approve, that we'd like to see this come back with the specific safety concerns being addressed, as well as the connectivity to the road. The art element, I think, I would approve with the context of the longevity of materials being addressed. I don't know if that's two separate motions or that can be all combined, but I don't feel comfortable with the approval of the design element, given our safety concerns. And all the color and vibrancy of the art element is lost until you're directly in the space, where I think we could really connect it to Hoover to create that invitation to the general public beyond just the neighborhoods, to invite them to start activating the park.
So I think,
That was not a very clear motion, sorry.
no, but I think the motion will have to, if it's, if it's to not approve, then it has to be both for the berm and the art, like the whole thing is.
Just like a recommendation of moving forward with the art. I have no concerns with the art element. I like the color and the vibrancy and incorporating it into a seating element. So I guess I'm not saying we separated that piece into approval, but I'm giving the guidance of, I think that piece is moving forward in the right direction. But the safety has to be addressed before I think it should move anymore.
Would you feel comfortable with, if we're sending this back, if they come back with the art element being, and I realize we're at 30%, but being a little bit more flushed out, giving that a little bit more consideration?
I personally don't I feel like the art element is not, for 30%, it feels very, like I can't
Yeah,
tell.
even though that there might be words in it, like
Right. We don't know, right?
So if we're punting it back, we want to see the art further developed, safety concerns addressed, and connectivity to Hoover Street.
Do you want to take a step again?
How's that? All right, so I make a motion to not approve with the request that they come back at 30% with the safety concerns better fleshed out and addressed, connectivity to Hoover Road, and the art element further developed for review.
By the way, did you see that the words he was talking about were actually on the fascia of the bench edge? He had a
For a second, we have a motion, so we have to vote on it, then we can do some discussion on it. Sorry, just for,
No, you have discussion before you have a vote. You got a motion in a second.
Like we have
do we second it?
I seconded it.
Oh, you second it, okay, I didn't hear that, thank you, okay. Go on. You're talking about the words? We got discussion on the motion?
I was saying on the front edge of the bench is where the words were. I don't know if you had seen that. That was, they've got an Aldo Leopold quote up there about
nature better than pavement.
It might be good, when they come back so we could clarify what is in the art scope and what is in the site scope. Maybe there's an exhibit or something that grays out everything that's not art. So we kind of know what's within that budget too. To me, I'm seeing the whole thing as art. I just like the way everything works together.
When it's integrated, right? That's
Yeah,
where.
That's
where it's-
that's how we design here at our, we like to integrate our art into our projects. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, do we have any further discussion on the motion? Okay, well, all in favor? Say aye. Again, we're gonna approve the motion to not approve.
Yes.
All in favor? Say aye. All opposed? No? Okay. So then we are asking for this to come back a 30% for, I guess, our next meeting or whenever they're ready.
Whenever they're ready.
Okay. Great. This meeting has been spicy today. I like it. All right, so then we're gonna move on to the Fire Station 23 art component. And we're looking at the request for qualifications.
I'm Chrissy with Test Right. Nice to meet you all.
I'm great with that's right. Well, nice to meet you.
And today, as you stated, we're seeking approval for this RFQ. So it is $174,000 public art commission for Station 23. And I'm just going to go through this briefly and highlight a few things for you. The project, we are asking to reflect the nature of the influence of nearby Pawnee Prairie Park and Prairie Sunset Trail. The art components that we've identified are a freestanding sculpture, a screen wall with sculptural relief or mural, and or building identification. So the artist will get to choose one or all of these items that they would like to propose for. The image here, you can see we've identified the site location. You can see the large green space to the right of that site location in red, which is Pawnee Prairie Park. So we really wanted to highlight kind of that emphasis of that area of the neighborhood right next to it. So the art eligibility is open to everyone in the nation with a preference for Kansas-based artists. And we will select up to 5 finalists for an interview for in-person or virtual presentation of that interview. And our desire is to put this on the cafe October 16th. And that would allow the design schedule such that the art could be installed with synonymous with the completion of the construction of the project. So very similar to the last projects that you've seen, our selection criteria would be based on artist excellence, relevant prior experience, the creative process, and the relationship to the area. And then we shared in this RFQ for the artist, the schematic designs that we brought before you guys last month, so they can see that for context. So we've identified the in the upper left where the building identification should go, should that be the item that they choose. The screen wall will hide the kind of patio area of the firefighters. And then we provided them also the 3D renderings of the project as it stands currently for reference, as well as the site plan. And in the site plan, we have, I get to the mouse. We have identified where the sculpture location could be, as well as, again, highlighting the location of that screen wall. Any questions for you guys?
Thank you. Okay, so comments. So we're approving the RFQ.
looks good.
You are electing one artist, right? Or team?
One
Or
artist
team.
or artist team, yes.
If the artist not choose to do the building identification signing, I'm assuming you already have some kind of signage built into the package already.
Yeah, there will be other signatures for the building.
Motion to approve.
Okay, as presented, yeah.
I'm abstaining, by the way. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, because you're working on this. Okay. So we have a second? Second, okay. All right, any discussion on the motion? No, okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose. Passes. Wow, this was the easiest one of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve, you did not.
Abstain, yeah.
Steve did.
Steve is abstaining. All right, so we have our last item on the agenda, the RFQ for Hilltop Community Center mural.
I will take this one. All right, so we have a fairly straightforward RFQ for a mural located at the Hilltop Community Center in South Wichita in District 3. That is, we're asking Wichita artists and specifically artists who have a connection to, who live within or have a connection to District 3 itself to apply for this RFQ. The budget is $10,000. And that the funds have been derived from the Hyatt land sale with City Council member Bill Heisel. We're providing a brief history of the Hilltop neighborhood, which has very unique history within our community. The location for the mural will be on the Hilltop Community Center, which is a building approximately 200 by 250 by 25 feet. It's a white corrugated steel construction. Here's the site map, and it is located next to Friendship Park. And here are images of the facades of the building. So the art vision is to reflect the Hilltop community of today and sort of the unique activities and concerns of that community and the neighborhood residents that include animal advocacy, community gardens, beekeeping, history of aircraft workers and the aircraft industry, community celebrations and gatherings. We are not specifying a specific facade or area on the building. The artist can choose to wrap the mural around, to partially cover areas of the building. We're going to leave that up to the design process with the selected artist. And again, as I said, the art budget is $10,000. The RFQ will be issued on October 13th if it's approved today. Applications will be due on November 10th. We're hoping to notify the selected artist early in December and contract before the end of the year with installation in spring, summer of 26. And as I said, eligibility are artists that reside within Sedgwick County, especially District 3. Selection criteria is the same as what you've seen through most of the RFQs, as well as submittal requirements. And I'll take any questions you may have.
Comments from council?
I have a random question, but so I'm new, right?
Yeah,
I'm serious. What constitutes an emerging artist? Can anybody say that they're emerging artists?
Great question.
No, we consider emerging artists, especially within the public arts sector, right? Artists who do not have an extensive portfolio of work within the public sector. That does not mean they have not been working as professional artists for years or decades, but their experience within the public arts sector itself is limited.
You say the district connectivity, like that you're seeking was a requirement or a preference?
It's a preference.
By limiting it to that, you'll get enough responses, hopefully.
I have no idea.
See what you come up with.
We shall see. Yeah.
That's why I asked. If
Yeah.
it was a requirement, I was like,
Not-
your
not a
pool might be pretty small.
Yeah, it's not a requirement. But it-
Requirement is Sedgwick County residents.
Yeah.
Let's go. No, I had a question about the timeline, but I think it's clarified on your actual timeline slide. Never mind on that. Up above it said expected to be finished in the spring. But then here specifies June.
May through June.
Yeah.
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 Technically spring,
Late spring.
Late spring.
late spring, but still spring.
Yes. I was thinking of the weather for an outdoor mural project, but no,
Yeah.
I think that's okay. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward RFQ. And again, they will select from the RFQ directly, right? The artist. Yeah.
Correct. And the artist will work with the city staff on design development.
Any other comments on this RFQ? Feels pretty straightforward like the previous one. That, then can we entertain a motion? Do you have a second? There, Janelle or Steve, whoever you want for the second.
Janelle can have it.
Or Janelle.
Yeah, there you go.
Or Steve.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. And those are the agenda items. We have anything else may rise?
We have three, and I'll go real quick here. Just a quick update on the downtown pedestal art project that was approved. I want to say it was at the last meeting, but now it's a little bit of a blur.
Yeah.
We had hoped to take it to city council for approval tomorrow or next week, but unfortunately we're at a delay waiting on our National Endowment of Arts funding. So although we've been received an offer for that funding, we've not been contracted for it. And we don't know when we're going to get that contract at this point. So we're kind of at a lull or wait on that project until we can finalize our contracts with National Endowment of Arts, and then actually also the Kansas Arts Commission, because the grant we received for that project from KAC is also tied to KAC's federal funding. So we are waiting to see how long the shutdown lasts. If it's a significant delay, we don't necessarily need those dollars in order to move the project along. So there might become a fork in the road at some point where we want to potentially reject those funds and move forward with the project as presented with the funding that we have in the CIP. So we'll kind of give it some time to see how much of a delay it's going to be. There's always the opportunity that we move the project forward as it is now with the $200,000 we have in the budget that accommodates all the sculptures that have been preliminarily approved by you all. And that we can go out for another call or reassess once we can guarantee that additional $50,000 is coming in. So I think we're kind of at a wait and see, but as we know more, you all will know more. But I know we'll get some sort of messaging out to the artists who've applied sooner than later, because we're now past the initial timeline that we anticipated, just waiting on federal contracting. Other couple of things, design council bylaws, a few months ago, you approved revisions. Those will actually go on city council's agenda tomorrow on consent agenda. Just want you to all be aware of that. There's only one modification. I apologize to not bring it to design council for approval, but it was a legals review as it related to the access advisory board member seat. So we did have a provision added in that there can be an ex officio seat for an access advisory board member. So it doesn't change the voting makeup of this board at all, still falls in line with the ordinance, but we may have another person attending as an ex officio non-voting member in the future, representing access advisory, which as a reminder is the board that, it's a city county board that advises on accessibility, ADA compliance, and more. And then the last one I have is just a friendly reminder that the Art Awards, November 8th. Last meeting, you all approved LW Clap Park to receive the Chris Church's Award for Exceptional Design. Probably got an email about that confirming, but you're all invited to the Art Awards on November 8th at the Wave. It's a brunch meeting or brunch presentation when that award will be officially distributed. That's all I got.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for participating. Nick, you're the newest one, so feel free to ask questions like you did today. Yeah, sometimes we get in a roll of things, we kind of move through things, and if there's something that, you know, you're not getting, just let us know. Yeah, thank you. All right, well, with that, we adjourn at 11:44, even before noon. That's great. Good job. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.